Hello friends, welcome to the lecture on subroutines. Today we are going to see how we can actually pass multiple arrays or multiple hashes inside a subroutine. In our previous lecture on subroutines, we had seen how we are actually passing multiple scalar variables and how we can return values from a subroutine. But today we are going to see how to pass multiple arrays and multiple hashes. Why we are speaking about this particular topic and why this is not pretty much the same way we pass scalar variables or multiple scalar variables. This is because in case of arrays or hashes, we cannot do the same thing that we have done in our previous lecture on passing multiple values to a subroutine or passing multiple scalar values to a subroutine. Passing arrays or passing hashes is a little different. We'll see why exactly it is different and what is the workaround or what exactly you need to follow in order to pass multiple arrays or multiple hashes to a subroutine. So let us first write a simple function in which we are just going to print num1 and num2 arrays. We'll pass these two arrays to a function and then we'll simply go ahead and print these two arrays. So what we'll do is we'll say sub print array, and inside this function we are going to take two arrays, that is arr1 and at the rate arr2, and this we'll get it from at the rate underscore. This is a special descriptor, so whatever data we pass to a function, that is print array, will always be present in at the rate underscore. So now from this particular variable we have assigned it to at the rate arr1 and arr2. We'll see what exactly happens when we pass two arrays. So what we'll do is we'll simply go ahead and use a for each loop to print the arrays. That is, we are traversing first and then we'll print the array element by element. So here we'll quickly add. Okay, so this is printing the first array. Similarly, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and print the second array. So the changes would be arr2 and here arr2. Now let us go ahead and call this particular function. So I would say having a forward reference, and now simply go ahead and call the function num1 comma at the rate num2. These were the two arrays that we had defined for this particular function. Now we'll go ahead and execute the code. Oops, forgot to end the function. Okay, so now let's go ahead and execute. So now what we can see is we've got all the data that were there in both these arrays, that is 1 2 3 and 4 5 6. But if you see, at the rate arr2 has remained empty because we have never got this particular line in our output. So it was always arr1 which has got the contents of both the array. Now why has this happened? So whenever we pass multiple arrays to a subroutine, the at the rate underscore variable, what it does is it collates all the data. If these arrays are passed by value, it collates all the data in it and it gives it to the first variable. If the first variable in this case was a scalar variable, then it goes on, so it will assign first element from the at the rate underscore variable, that would be 1. Then it will assign rest data to this particular variable. In this case, if this is an array, so all the other elements, that is 2 3 4 5 6, would get assigned to at the rate arr2. In case you have assigned another variable or another scalar variable here and a third variable as your array variable, so it will assign 1 and 2 to the first and second variable, these scalar variables, and whenever it finds an array, it will assign all the data that it has inside an array. So it gives all the data that is present in at the rate underscore to the largest holding variable. So that would be an array or a hash variable. Now, how do you get around this particular problem? So if I have passed two arrays, I would ideally want these two arrays separated whenever I receive them inside a function. So what we'll do is we'll simply use references. This is a concept in Perl in which you pass your data or you pass your variables like array variables, hash variables, or even for that matter scalar variables as reference to a subroutine. So now what we'll do, in order to create a reference of an array variable, I simply add a backslash to this. So this is passing a reference of these two array variables inside a function. Now in order to collect these references, I'll simply use scalar variables to collect them. So now $arr1 is actually pointing to @num1 and $arr2 is pointing to @num2. So ideally, if we go ahead and print these two variables, if you can see here, we'll say arr arr1 ref, and we'll go ahead and print $arr1. Okay, and similarly, what we'll do is we'll print for arr of 2. This would actually say the holding type as array variable. So now let's say I'll simply go ahead and change few things here. We'll talk in detail about this particular thing that we are doing here currently, but just for the sake of simplicity, as of now, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and execute this particular program. Now if you can see, arr1 ref is array and arr2 ref is array again. So what has happened is this particular reference or this particular scalar variable is a reference to an array variable, is what it has told me. Now in order to dereference this, what we need to do is simply use an sign to dereference the array variable. Why? Because arr1 is holding an array variable, or it is holding an array value. So to dereference it, I'm simply using sign in both the cases. And because we are using a for each loop, it is traversing through the entire array and it has printed elements the way we actually had passed the array variables to that particular subroutine. So we have got 1, 2, 3 separately, 4, 5, 6 separately in the two arrays that we had passed. So I hope this is pretty much clear. We'll quickly go through what we have done here again, because this is one of the most important aspects of how you can pass multiple arrays and multiple hashes in a subroutine. To pass multiple arrays, we'll simply say we'll simply pass references to the array variables. Once the reference is being passed, we'll collect them into a scalar variable just like this. And because these scalar variables have references to array or array variables, in order to dereference these variables, whatever the type of data type that is being referred by these scalar variables, we'll simply use that particular sign. So in case of hash, we'll simply use % here. In case of array, we are using @. So now let us do the same thing for hashes. What we'll do, we'll go ahead, define two hashes, say hash1, and my hash1 will have two keys for now. Let's say name is one of the keys, and I'm simply writing some name here. So let's say Rahul is my first name. The other key would be age, and age is, let's say, 10. I'll go ahead and I'll define another hash, that would be hash2. Okay, so I'm simply changing some fields here, and this would be hash2. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and copy this particular program and we'll make appropriate changes in this case. So instead of print array, I would say print hash. I'll pass the two hashes that we have defined now. So that would be hash1 and hash2. Okay. Now here I'm collecting it into, let's say, hash_1 and hash_2. So these variables are references to this particular hash that we have passed here. So instead of here array, we'll say hash1, and here we'll say hash2. And hash_1, hash_2. Now then, as we decided, these are hashes that we have passed. We'll simply go ahead and change the first sign, that is %. Now for hashes we need keys, so we'll simply use the keys function to get the keys of this particular hash. Now to hold this particular key, I'm simply defining a scalar variable here. This will have my key, that is that is returned by the keys function for this particular hash. Oops. We'll go ahead and change the hash, the variable name also, that is hash underscore 1. Now then, I need to print the key and value pair. So I'll say key and my value. Now how do I get value? So I'll simply, my hash reference is there in hash underscore 1. I have written this. Now it is going to point to $key. You can just have a look at this particular statement, what we have done here. We will definitely discuss in detail about this statement once we complete this particular program. So in the similar case here, we will say $key. Okay, first, as we have done in the above case, we will simply say $$ hash underscore 2. Okay, pass this into keys function so that we can have all the keys associated with this. Get the key in this particular scalar variable. Now we have got the key. We'll go ahead and print this particular key. So we'll say hash underscore 2, dereferencing the hash using the pointer operator and passing the key to get the value of that particular hash. Now we'll go ahead and we'll execute our program. So I'm doing a clear screen. So now if you see, in this particular case, we have got hash1 ref and hash2 ref as hash. In the previous case, it was array, as we had passed arrays to our subroutine. In this case, they are hashes, as we are passing hashes to our subroutine. Followed by that, we are getting our values. So key was age, name, age, name. So these were two hashes, and we have got the corresponding value associated with it. So now how we have got the value for that particular key? So this is my hash. Okay, now to dereference this, I am using a pointer sign and followed by a $key. So if you remember, for a hash, we had done something like this. Okay, to get the value. So we usually used to represent our hash, let's say %hash1, and we'll write $hash1 followed by the key. If you are quite okay with writing this particular syntax, you'll simply add a $sign. So this dollar dereferences the actual hash here. So that is, if you see this, and we'll quickly again execute this program, so you can see the output has not changed even a bit. We have got the output as we had gotten in our previous case, but the way we have got our value from that particular hash has changed slightly. So either you can use this to dereference a hash, or you can use multiple $signs to dereference the hash. Either ways, it's gonna work for you. I would leave it to you guys. You can decide whichever way you are comfortable in writing so, but I would definitely prefer this particular way, as this gives you a clear idea that your hash was a reference, and now you are actually dereferencing this particular hash. So this brings us to the end of our lecture, the advanced lecture on subroutines, where we have passed multiple arrays, multiple hashes, and we have seen how to actually collect them and how to actually pass them as references to a subroutine. You do remember that you cannot directly pass multiple arrays or multiple hashes to a subroutine, just like you pass multiple scalar variables. I'll see you guys at the next lecture. Thank you.